We're in from Utah. I'm in from Utah. Nick, who is our Connecticut rep, is here from New Jersey. I had no idea that this was the weather that we would get out here. It's typically been kind of cold when it brings me out here. So I'm going to briefly give just a history of Arbiter Pay and then turn it over to Nick to describe how it works. But I like to tell people it's got tons of benefits for schools, but Arbiter Pay was actually dreamt up by an official for two reasons. And just coincidence, Arbiter was started in Utah, but there was a referee also in Utah who had complained to the state association. He said, I've got two beefs being a ref. And he's a relatively young guy, and he was a banker. He said, one, I have to give my social security number to every school, and it's usually some kid out with a W-9 I have to fill out. And he said, especially after one game where we from the fans afterwards, and then we come out and our voucher with our socials is just sitting on the scores table. Every fan had walked by our socials on the way out. And when I complained to the athletic director, all he can say is, sorry. And then number two was the speed of payment. He said there's some schools try and pay it pretty quick. Some, as a basketball official, I get it the last week of school. They're closing the book out. And, I forgot, we're still paying some winter officials. He says it can't be that way. So the state association in Utah, after hearing complaints, like, well, you're a banker, fix it. How are we gonna fix that? And he came up with what today is Arbiter Pay. Back then it was Ref Pay. And we acquired that business and it's been fabulous. The only other thing that I wanted to share around that is, as a local example, the technical schools had started using Arbiter Pay, and then the comptroller, who apparently has more oversight over them than some other areas, was just concerned that their internal accounting system wasn't being used. But one of the things we share with them is, he said, we'll pay the officials faster by check. But the thing I like to share is that it's a whole culture of officiating. And especially a young ref who's in college or just graduated or something, when you're getting paid by check, you buy all your equipment, you get yelled at the field, and then months later you get a check in the mail. It's not rewarding, it doesn't feel modern, and it doesn't feel like, it's like, I get it, this was for my dad. I'll tell him to officiate, not me. That it's so different that once you're using Arbiter Pay, and often at halftime, the AD's like, hey, thanks for being here today. I've just issued your payments. The official's app lights up. You've been paid. If the officiating community needs to get younger and those kinds of things, which we all know it does, it's a tool for doing that. So I like to highlight that part. It's not just great for schools and removing the 1099 issues and the headaches they deal with. On the officiating side, it is a tool for modernizing the industry and getting young kids willing to officiate and not thinking it's an old person's game.
Thanks, Clark. All right. Like Clark said, my name is Nick. I'm one of the account representatives here with Arbiter Sports, and appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all today. Appreciate for the history of everything. So for those of you that are not too familiar with Arbiter Pay, it's the most comprehensive payment platform for officials, event workers, security, practically any 1099 worker within the K through 12 space. We give you the ability to pay all of these individuals through our software system electronically and securely as well. Really, the goal of Arbiter Pay is just to simplify and streamline your financial operations. So how does it work exactly? It's a really simple process. Step number one is to fund your account. Generally, the most popular way of doing so is via an ACH transfer. We also have schools that opt for the check method as well. Once that money goes into your account, it's yours. You can take it in and out as you so please. The next step is to then pay your event workers and all of your officials with just a couple of clicks. Like Clark was mentioning, you can literally do it at halftime. It only takes a matter of seconds to do. Once that money then goes into the event workers' officials' account, they have the opportunity to either take it out directly to their bank account or they can opt for an Arbiter debit card and basically spend with that money as they so please. And then on top of that as well, because you're paying through our system, we do process, we track, and we distribute all 1099s as well. That's really to a T how it all works. Clark, I don't know if you have anything else you want to add on that?
So on the 1099s, because again, if I were to ask a school, why are you using Arbiter Pay? The number one reason, hands down, is because we take over the 1099s. They don't like cutting checks either. They love getting rid of that. But the real reason is, in the IRS's eyes, we are now the payor of the official. And we, Arbiter, has the responsibility to issue a 1099. Because even if you are, like the school I referenced, having kids go out and make sure every ref completes a W-9 before they leave the field, if it's not legible, if you record it wrong, the IRS is sending your district a nasty gram that you sent in 1099s with invalid tax IDs. And when our system's used, we get that notice. We're the one that they come after for any of the invalid information. And we're just in a better position to collect it. We don't have to have them complete a paper 1099 form out at the field. For us, they often do it with while they're registering to officiate for the state or something like that. We get them to do it online in a secure location so that no one has access to that social security number long before the games are played. So the gentleman here at our table was telling us that's not having to, track who they owe a 1099 to, or the cost to mail those out, and then the headaches that can come afterwards. That's the big win that a school district sees with the 1099 process and with Arbiter Pay. Was just going to mention too, because Glenn got an email a week ago. Paying officials is popular because we know who every official is at all of your games. We provide a nice, easy screen that says, here's who worked last night's games. You owe them money. You just check some boxes to release payment. But more and more often, they're paying other event workers, security or ticket takers, or anyone that you have at the field and is a contractor, not an employee. And if anyone wants a conversation over who's a contractor and an employee, I've been at the company for 30 years. I'm becoming an expert on that because more and more districts, or even teachers and stuff, they're asking them, if you're gonna take tickets at the game, that is not gonna come through your pay stub anymore. You're a contractor in the evening. And they have them sign a form that says you're not required to do it. I could go do this at other schools or other districts. We're not trying to say you're doing this because you're our employee. It's not in your job duties. And then they feel more comfortable paying them. You can't do that if you're cutting the checks. You cannot have an employee that you're also giving 1099 funds to. But when a third party is paying it, you can. So again, that's perhaps a gray area, but thousands of our districts have been audited that are doing it that way. Madison, Wisconsin, for instance, the teachers were saying, well, you said it would be $30, but I'd already worked 40 hours as a teacher, so I get overtime. You owe me $45 for taking tickets. Okay, we're moving you to contractor status for these athletic events. You're not required to be there. Go do it for the neighboring schools if you want. We're an easy, clean way to do that because it splits payment. Arbiter pays them for the event work, and you guys pay them for their educational responsibilities. So to that, we have in Connecticut a lot of schools that are paying their event workers through it. There's not a referee assigner scheduling the event workers. Someone in the athletic office does that, but on each game you can go indicate. We've got lots of tools to make it fast, like this person's always the announcer, or I want these two people automatically assigned to every soccer game, however you do that. Currently, Glenn got a request. Unlike an official, event worker doesn't get an email saying you've got an upcoming event tomorrow and that kind of stuff. It was assumed they were at the school and were aware those kinds of things were happening. But I spoke with our product department before coming out, and they said this spring that feature set will be enabled where the event workers can log into the app just like an official and see their payment balance and their schedule, and can start receiving the email alerts. So, and by the way, the cost, in case it's changed over time, but the primary method now, it used to be a transaction fee when you paid an official. These days, nearly every time, it's just a flat expense. We'll hear, the size of your school, how many sports programs you have, that kind of stuff, and quote you a cost that would include every payment you make, whether it's officials, whether you start including event workers. So for your office, they know this is the expense regardless how many payments there are, and whether games are canceled or new ones are added. That was always a small frustration, as they couldn't count on what their expense for the service would be. So I know you want time for questions. Do we do that now, or is that going to be at the end of something?
Yeah, we can do that now. And one point, Clark, we do have league commissioners here as well. So, state association leagues, same function with Arbiter when running their tournaments in terms of paying out of there.
Yep. Yeah, obviously the CIAC pays all the postseason games out of it, and they're not a school. We've got numerous features for anyone who has to issue a payment, whether it's a league event or something like that. If it's not coming from a school budget, there is still a method to pay them digitally and let us be responsible for the tax reporting. We got a question here.
Can you expand on that flat expense? Because that's not how I would expand my use of it if that was the case.
Yeah. So again, you're current on transaction. So we would look at your transaction history and then quote you a price that usually is a little bit more that you're paying now. We have to protect ourselves that someone's like, oh, now it's unlimited and we hadn't expanded it to these programs. But then that's just a flat fee. We invoice you that once, and you could pay as often. We'd say we'll have a school interested in event workers, they'd ask us, well, how many event workers do you think we'd have? We don't know. We would hope you'd know that, and we have no idea. Then let's just do a flat fee, and neither side has to worry. But then it just becomes an annual invoiceable event, and you make it payments, and no additional fee comes out. The officials are paid their amount, and there's no transaction fee. Also easier for balancing. Sometimes it's tough to know if you have enough funds in there for next week's games, because you're trying to calculate the transaction fees associated with it too. So we call that APUP, Arbiter Pay Unlimited Pricing. So if you were to get Nick's card or something like that, just say I'm interested in the unlimited pricing.
I'm just a league commissioner. I just want to talk to you about the league part of it. As Glenn just kind of mentioned, is what I always find difficult is we play neutral sites, we do all the stuff, and like some officials put it into Arbiters, some of the schools put it in there, and I just want to make sure, and so from a league perspective, just paying them, because there's different fees also too, for league championships that we follow for the the CIAC guidelines, so it's just a lot easier from the league perspective. So, but we've had some issues trying to coordinate, so maybe to just help with that.
And getting you some education around how Arbiter works will help you direct them to, just as a for instance, every event has a field on it that says who's paying the officials. And the CIAC's done a wonderful job. They're one of the options, and they're on every postseason game, they've trained them. You put CIAC in as we call it the bill to, the person paying the official. That's right, now all your league games, just tell them to put that on there. But it's true, then a league can also be set up in there like that, and if you just tell everyone, if it's our event, you list us, and if you don't, we're not paying the officials, because it won't show up on our screen.
Clark, is that usually done by the league, or is that something that state associations, usually put into the drop down of the platform?
Depends on how comfortable the state is with it. You guys are experts, so often the state does say, we'll go add that for you or take care of it. We have some states where that's outside of their capabilities, and then we're directing the league to do it. But yeah, at the Connecticut level, that's something they can easily handle. You had a comment?
Yeah, first of all, we use Arbiter at our school. Works great, so thanks for that, and thanks for being here. Question, I would never do this, but say your account balance goes negative or gets too low. What would happen at that point? Are officials still getting paid, and we're paying a fee for going around? How would that be treated, just so we can make sure an official gets paid if there's a delay on getting payment to you guys?
So that's interesting. You currently can't go into the red. No official's getting paid if the balance is there. The system would tell you you don't have the funds to make this payment. And we do get that, and occasionally, I'm always like, just takes a couple days to ACH the money in, but occasionally they're wiring it to us because the officials are restless and they want it more immediate. But we have talked about potentially letting people go into the red. School districts turnout are very financially solid and would not stiff us. So there are instances where, they're going into Thanksgiving, they've promised the refs they'll have the money before the holidays, that at times we've considered allowing that to happen because we would not be concerned that there'd be a credit risk when we're dealing with school districts. School districts have been 100% perfect in dealing with us, which has given us confidence we could do something like that. Yes.
Thanks again. Use Arbiter quite often, and I try to take advantage of a lot of the features that it has. In terms of the app that's coming out this spring that you were talking about with the workers and the schedule, is that like an added feature in terms of the schools would have to buy into it, or is it once it's enabled for anybody?
Yeah, no extra cost. The app is available today, so I don't know if you have it. Do you log into our app?
Probably not.
No. So we have an app, all of the whole room, well, those involved with athletic events should download it. Officials log in and see their balance and schedules. School logs in, and well, you see your balance and schedules too, to make payments, not to receive them. And you can make payments right from it. If you're out at a game, you can pull it up on the app and it's going to show the officials' names to release payment right there. So the additional functionality that's coming is just that athletic or event workers can log into the app too. So there's already an app. They just, when they try and log in, they actually can get in there, but it doesn't display anything to them, and it will start showing their schedule and their balance.
And then a second question, kind of around, there's some officiating groups that, are kind of reluctant to get involved with Arbiter reffing or officiating. But yet, so then it becomes worse. We have these small little pockets of officials that don't want to join. Is there, what's the fee in order for us to try to encourage those officiating groups? And I'm talking about a couple in our area, like swimming and fencing. How do we get, would be the fee structure for them to join, to make their own Arbiter group?
Yeah, it's just a couple $100.
Yeah.
Those are going to be tiny groups, and so it's small. The best thing you could do is almost just get my card and let us speak with them. They're usually just scared. Why would I need it when I only assign 10 ref or something like that? And we tell them because they're going to love getting paid electronically and these other things. But we can even show you too. Some, it's just so nice when you don't have to cut them a check and you're 100% out of the 1099 business. Some will schedule the refs themselves, which is something you can do. For swimming, you could put in a swim event. There's a setting that says I have an assigner, but another one that says I'm just going to put the names on myself, and then you could still pay them electronically with a little extra work of you putting the names on the games instead of the assigner doing it.
That's what I was gonna say, because that's what I do for track, because track doesn't have assigners. So I go into Arbiter Pay, and I fill out all the information I get from them, and Arbiter sends them a check. It makes it easy.
Steve,
Simple Pay too,
Would you
yeah.
talk a little bit
But you can
about-
use Simple Pay, or there's a place that just literally assign them to the game and then they behave like any other game, like an assigner would put on there. Just depends on how you want the reporting to look. Yeah, Glenn?
Steve, can you talk a little bit about, you came from a district that didn't use Arbiter to Arbiter Pay, to a district that did. Just for you as an athletic director, managing it, what was your experience not using it, shifting to using it? Do you mind?
Yeah, we'll let him have the mic here.
I don't know if I need the mic.
Look out, we don't want the tomatoes on us.
Yeah, so I came from Waterbury to Brookfield. When I got to Brookfield, this Arbiter Ref Pay then was already set up. And it's so much easier. Like, I didn't have to go to the official, hey, please fill this out, all this big sheet, put your social security number on it. That was taken out. I actually print out the vouchers, and all they do is sign it, And like he said, I typically pay them at halftime, and all of the paperwork's done for you. The 1099s, my finance director runs the report. She could see everything that I do in there, perfect report per sport, by ref, by game worker, by, officials that I have to input, like he was asking about fencing. I do that for track and cross country because they don't have official associations that assign them. So I'm able to pay them through there. It just makes it very easy. If I'm not at the game, my secretary will come in the next day, take the vouchers, just go click, 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 paid. Don't have to worry about sending paperwork down to get checks cut and sent out. I was just talking to Mike about, I just did a report for my winter. I went right to regular Arbiter, looked at all my officials and added it up. I sent that to my finance person and they sent the check to Arbiter and it's done. So it made it very easy.
One of the nice features, we use it as well, one of the nice features is you can add your finance director in Arbiter as a finance manager, and they can just do reports. So it's like automatic. Whenever I need to put more money in my account, my finance director goes in, pulls a report,
That's a good point. I have that too.
And then she's happy and I get more money.
Our table was talking about too, one of them had indicated we don't track our expenses by sport, but one of the natural things you get when you use Arbiter Pay is there is one report that shows every payment and breaks it down by sport, so you can, which for Title IX purposes across the country we're told how much did you spend on women's sports, how much did you spend on the boys, and if you don't have that, you get in trouble. Oh.
Yeah. It's kind of back to the workers a little bit. In the meantime, is there a way to make the notification system for our workers? So if I get assigned to work the chain gang for a Friday night football game, where there's a date of the game where you could press a button and it would automatically go right to your calendar. In the meantime, I don't know if that's what type of...
It's something Nick and I have made a couple notes earlier, and we'll add that just something to take to our product team, because at some point you could see the event workers may outnumber the volume of officials getting paid, so it's just becoming a very serious... In fact, there's a Texas school that's famous at Arbiter now. When you pull up their football games, there's 6 refs and 64 other event workers for parking and attendance, and they're paying a lot of people for each football event. So that's just a growing need at Arbiter. The event workers are as integrated as the officials. I was gonna, and I know Glenn, we were probably close on time. The officiating part is serious. I shared with Glenn, I was in Georgia at an event, kind of like this. I was sitting at a table, and there was a nice young official, I guess 24 or 25, and he looked like, he could run through a wall. I'm like, this is the kind we need more of. And he tells me, I was looking young at the time, and he's like, we're some of the younger refs in the whole room. I'm like, I got bad news for you. I'm not one of the refs. And he told me, I may not stick with this for too long. Last year was rough. He's like, literally, our associating meetings are at the bottom of Moe's Tavern, and we cut a check for our officiating dues there, and then we get paid by a check, usually before Christmas. And I start working mid-August. He's like, I was like, stay, we're working on Georgia, stick around, because it's so different when you log into an app. It tells you where you're working next, or you accept and decline when you're going to have a game. You have a calendar to say, I can't work these days, so you're not frustrating an assigner when he's offering you assignments that you can't take. And you get payments often at halftime. That's, short of that, they're better off driving Uber, where they can just get their money in their Uber app as they drop people off. So we all know there's a dearth of officials, and that group just keeps getting older and older. That at some point, the modernization that we have going here is very positive for youth officials wanting to stay with it. Thank you.